They're looked at as sex objects when they're out there in the field.
These are the women
We found really bad situations with ongoing sexual violence.
who pick and process
They were all illegal, and they were afraid they were going to get deported.
the food on our tables.
But when only 5 pickers showed up this morning to harvest his sweet potatoes, farmer Keith Smith saw possible ruin, the loss of his $500,000 crop.
They're running scared because of this new law.
And you're in trouble.
I'm in trouble, bad trouble.
Smith's 200 acres need 20 pickers, mostly Mexican nationals.
There is not enough documented people here to supply that workforce.
Most of your workers are here illegally.
That's sure. If they got documentation, they got a better job than working for me.
Fernando Aldeman, a Mexican national, has worked Smith's farm since 1992.
Everybody's just scared.
Yeah.
Now, are you here legally? No.
No.
So, are you scared?
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared, you know.
Smith's pickers make about $100 a day. He supports immigration laws, just not this one that threatens his third-generation family farm.
You want to get rid of illegal immigrants, quit eating. And that's for everybody. That's, nationwide. If you want to get rid of them, quit eating. That'll solve the problem.
Which is worse, this pack of Marlboro Reds or this French fries from McDonald's? I'm a board-certified MD, and you're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. Acrolein is a toxic substance known to be in the gaseous form of cigarette smoke, also known to cause cancer by harming your DNA metabolic pathways. You're not going to believe that this package of French fries has more acrolein in it than this package of smokes. Acrolein is a toxic substance. You must avoid it. You should not be feeding your children or yourself McDonald's French fries. These French fries contain more than 100 cigarettes full of acrolein. Why am I telling you this? Because people need to know.
Hey guys, it's Comrade Lavender here and some true crime deep dive video topic. Today I want to do the topic of pure evil, the potato farming industry files. Deep dive, capitalism, debt bondage, capitalism slavery, true crime, pollution, etc. So let's get started into this YouTube video topic. Before we get started, all my YouTube videos that are related to this topic will be on the screen right now, as well as in the description, only if I have room, but it'll always be on the screen right now if you'd like to check them out. So let's get started into this YouTube video topic. Workers at a potato processing plant in Texas face abuse by their employers, but choose to stay silent out of fear of retaliation and of losing their H-2A visas. Most are unaware that they're even victims of forced capitalism slave labor, or that fees are required to pay their supervisors for a visa are illegal. They don't trust the police either because the police only serve capitalism and fear retaliation for speaking out. It's a reality faced by some 36,000 people a year in this border state. A victim of capitalism of this, Pablo suffered through countless hardships to avoid losing his temporary work visa and job at a potato plant in Dalhart, Texas in the Texas Panhandle. One day, he said his boss, Xavier López Palacios, hit him so hard in the leg that he was left with a limp. On others, Pablo was pressured repeatedly to work faster. López, who was in charge of the warehouse until June, also shouted insults at Pablo and threatened to call immigration agents to deport him back to his country. Under strict orders, Pablo worked up to 22 continuous hours. Once he was so tired that he accidentally fractured his hand. In spite of doctor's orders, López, who has denied the accusations, wouldn't allow Pablo to rest after this incident. He said treating him like a capitalism wage slave, or just a pure slave. Pablo's name has been changed to protect his identity and to omit to guarantee his family's safety, to avoid retaliation. Pablo's situation is not unique. Each year, thousands of Mexican and Central American immigrants experience capitalism slavery in the United States fascist regime. In Dalhart, Texas, at the end of one of those dirt roads about half an hour drive from the town, sits the 37,500 acres of land owned by Larsen Farms, one of the largest potato producers in the United States. It was founded in 1966. The farm supplies potatoes to a large chunk of the country, with sales of between 4 and 5 million bags a year to retailers like Walmart. This is where Pablo works alongside some 300 other workers each year, and in the months between March and October, when land is prepared and planted, like him, more than 70% of his colleagues are Mexicans, brought by the company with temporary H-2A visas. They are the core workforce of this company, and the rest of the employees are Hondurans, Guatemalans, and Mexicans who live in Dalhart. Many of them are undocumented immigrants and use fake social security numbers to get work. Some are teenagers. More than a dozen people interviewed by the U-Vision NOCLAs between November and July, without visas and with visas, say they suffered abuse at the hands of their supervisors at the company. Since U-Vision began reporting the story, federal authorities have made multiple arrests implicating supervisors at Larsen Farms, including José Ramón Huaracha Escamilla, on crimes including fraud in foreign labor contracting and conspiracy to commit fraud in foreign labor contracting. Palacios was also detained and accused of fraud and misuse of visas, permits, and other documents. Another company supervisor charged Pablo more than $1,000, alleging that it was a kind of fee for the visa. Once he was working in Dalhart, Texas, Pablo says that he was forced to hand over part of his paycheck to José Ramón Huaracha every 2 weeks. Every portion went to Mexico to support his wife and his children. He also paid a monthly quota of hundreds of dollars to a criminal in Mexico so he wouldn't harm his family. Many workers come from areas dominated by drug cartels and also pay additional fees to protect their relatives in Mexico from violence. Other employees said that they had several family members pay between $1,000 and $1,200 to be included on the supervisor's list. One of them, identified as an H-2A worker in the criminal complaint, was contracted directly by José Ramón Huaracha to discuss the job opportunity and the understaffing of that the worker would be helping José Ramón Huaracha by making a $1,000 payment to him. Pablo was surprised to learn that this fee was illegal. He thought it was just part of the deal in the job. By 2020, he said that José Ramón Huaracha had increased the fee to something more like $1,500. Other immigrants owed $1,800 or more depending on the duration of their visas. I don't think there's anyone who comes here without paying something, he says. A lawsuit against a potato processor filed in December 2015 exposed some of these abuses. Company agents had promised by word of mouth to pay 3 workers, José Darte, José Redes Espinara, and George Riles, $15 an hour for 40 hours of work per week and $22.50 for overtime. In the end, they were made to work as truck drivers, forced to work during lunch without pay, and were not paid fully for the time worked. Defendant Larsen did not pay the plaintiffs even the $7.25 minimum wage or promise overtime wage of $22.50 an hour, the lawsuit explains. Catherine Porterfield, clinical psychologist with the Bellevue/New York University program for survivors of torture, explains that those who are abused to the limit of trauma are living in the condition of an inescapable threat, from which the body reacts by blocking fearful memories and losing the ability to ask for help. Martha Barzano, a psychologist who specializes in the treating of Latino immigrants who are victims of crime and trauma in the United States, points out the tremendous vulnerability of Central American and Mexican immigrant populations, precisely because many have already been victims in their home countries of origin. Potato chips and child exploitation, a story of innocence lost in labor. Farmers in Jugat, India, employ a workforce of docile children to slave through the harvest season with the promise of a meager 200 rupees for a day's work, sitting atop a roof, sitting in the hot bonnet area, cramming themselves near the driver's seat, or simply standing at the foot of pedals all around the vehicle and holding onto the doors. This small army of child and adolescent workers is headed to work on the potato farms in North India. Seeing them in groups, chatting, laughing, and enjoying a snack, or feeling energized by the fresh wind in their faces takes attention away from the fact these young children are the latest conquest of capitalism, labor exploitation in rural India, playing an important role in the capitalism, reproduction, and accumulation. These children are putting in about 8 to 10 hours of work in the blazing hot fields and sun and digging up soil with bare hands. These young workers are put to task to pull potatoes from the earth. The farmers who employ them have no misgivings about using children to get this work done, even though the chain of employment workers, through an indirect route, through contractors, who also happen to be the owners of the jeeps that took them to the farm, and irreversibly, people with some local power and influence in the village, hence their ability to muster up the workforce of docile children, who silently dig away and place the harvest potatoes in small buckets and baskets, and then in bigger potato bags. Periodically through the day, when the bigger bags become full, adult workers seal them up and haul them to the waiting truck. By the end of a workday, the truck is full, holding about 8,000 kilograms of potatoes. Potatoes are grown to make potato chips, the smart snack for an upward mobile and consumerist middle-class market. Potatoes do not block the farmland for prolonged periods of time. Once harvested, the land is free to be used again by another crop rotation, thus making it economically feasible for the grower who would ideally want to make as much profit as possible from the land in one season. By 7:37 in the morning, it is already 80 degrees in the potato field in Lamont, in the southern San Juan Valley in California. By mid-afternoon, here it'll reach 107 degrees. The workers moving up and down the rows are not dressed in shorts or tank tops. They are in multiple layers of clothing. And one worker said, "If I didn't wear my bandana, by the end of the day it'd be hard to breathe because of the dust in the area." The rows are as long as 2 football fields, and between the potatoes grows weeds that must be pulled. On this day in mid-June, the farm labor crew is pulling the weeds, putting them in bags, and the bags get heavier. And the sun gets hotter. There is a lot of dust everywhere in the air, and which some has in this part of the valley, which has some of California's worst air quality pollution. Soon you're unable to see the far edge of the field next to this one. If this were the potato field, like most in the valley, the dust would contain toxic pesticide and herbicide residue. Here the dust may be unpleasant, but it is not toxic because this is a organic potato farm for one of California's largest producers of organic vegetables, Cal Organic Farms. Potato plants take from 3 to 4 months to grow to maturity, and this field contains anywhere from 17,000 to 22,000 plants. Organic produce not only has created somewhat healthier working conditions for these farm workers, it has also meant more work overall. Since the grower cannot use herbicides or pesticides or weed removal tools, the workers must manually go down the line and get rid of the weeds to remove them. For lunch, small groups of friends at these farms sit together at the side of the field, and some build small fires to heat their tacos on. One popular taco filling is chorizo, the spicy Mexican sausage mixed with papes, otherwise known as potatoes. Organic potatoes are expensive in the market, but these workers are surrounded by fields of them. Many like the idea of eating food with no pesticides or toxic pesticides in them, as much as anyone, maybe more. Farm workers are exposed to much greater pesticide usage and levels than what is contained in food. Many here in the crew worked in several fields earlier in their work lives, and pesticide residue is very common in farm workers all over the world. A full bag can weigh 40 pounds or more, so Gonzalez will let them go down the end of the row and empty it before the weed bag gets completely full and heavy. The other 4 lady would always just yell at us to make us work faster and had us fill the bags before we could empty them. He remembers, in the field, workers are getting $9 an hour, just over minimum wage. Low wages and abuse are very prevalent in organic agriculture as they are in non-organic agriculture. They both have the same low wages and abuse. Espinoza has also gotten in trouble over sexual harassment. In 2006, The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission filed a lawsuit against the Grimaway and Espinara after a worker, Ann Benaro Rubio, said she had been constantly sexually harassed by her boss, who also groped and exposed himself to her. After complaining, she was fired. According to the EEOC attorney William Tamaco, 3 others had similar experiences. Jeffrey Green, Gimaway's general counsel, denied these charges. A year later, the company settled the suit by paying Rubio $175,000 and taking other measures. UFW founder Dolores Hernandez, who today heads a foundation in nearby Bakersfield, says women rarely complain about either labor law violations or sexual harassment for fear of being fired and being retaliated against. She's worried about is not only her losing her job, but she's worried about her husband losing their job, or her brother, or her boyfriend, or somebody in the family losing their job as well. A neighbor's plea to the potato giant. We're going to have casualties. RDO is the nation's largest potato grower and a McDonald's supplier, farming 190,000 acres across several states. It has annual profits projected at $2.5 billion. Its impact can be felt closer to home, too, as well. The Torevos moved from East to West Hackensack. They firsthand saw RDO's chemically intensive potato growing operation poisons drinking water. We watched our neighbors lose their well water to chemical contamination, Tuber said. The nitrate levels are really high and out of the roof, and have been for a while. One is now at 29 and the other one's at 34 milligrams per liter. We're in the middle of this giant chemical experiment going on around us. The nitrates in the Tubers community water come from chemical fertilizer applied to crops such as potatoes and corn. When nitrate fertilizer runs off in the fields or seeps into the groundwater and contaminates lakes, rivers, streams, all bodies of water, including drinking water wells. The tap water of 500,000 Minnesotans is now contaminated with elevated nitrates, and the state has long recognized that agriculture, farming, is the biggest source of this pollution, and newer research indicates that drinking water with 5 milligrams/liters or even lower is associated with risk of colorectal cancer and birth defects. It's not just nitrate fertilizer pollution in the water and threatens the environment and health of the Travers and their neighbors. Helicopters regularly spray chemicals over RDO potato fields to kill weeds and insects, sometimes in mid-flight, inadvertently dousing families with pesticides who are out for walks. After application, chemicals sprayed aerially or through irrigation equipment also drift in surrounding properties and areas, potentially into open windows of homes and cars. You check to see which way the wind is blowing before stepping outside. You can smell it, Turbo said. I've called the RDO farm manager about spraying before and told him you're going to have casualties.